nothing about the rorting at the time. Let's bring in Victorian Liberal MP Tim Wilson for the latest now. Tim, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So what do you make of these allegations, these reports that suggest that Michael Sukkar helped devise and oversee a potentially illegal branch stacking scheme?
Well, Pete, I know these matters have been investigated by the Department of Finance last year. And of course, that I wasn't privy to those investigations. Of course, appropriately, they were held independently. And ultimately, any question on these matters is going to have to be put to them. But of course, I think we all know that public resources should be treated appropriately and respectfully for the purposes in which they're procured from the public, from taxes, and I'm sure that everyone in Parliament would agree with that fundamental principle.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of question marks over that investigation, though, because 3 key witnesses weren't interviewed, and then Mr. Sukkar made strong representations to block the report's release. I mean, it seems as though it's pretty weak. Should that report be released?
Well, I think these are questions to be put to the Department of Finance, because in the end, they're the ones who oversaw it. They're the ones, as I understand it, who devised it, and they're the ones who followed through with the process. And that's the basis in which, you have a system with integrity, is when it's not politicians judging other politicians. It's proper processes, independent processes judging us.
I mean, it all dovetails back into a federal ICAC and the need for one, and the current situation and the current proposal has been described as being, without any teeth. What's your suggestion? What's your response to that?
Well, firstly, I mean, the public should wait and see what the final bill is that's put before the Parliament to address it. There's lots of people with commentary on the exposure draft. The exposure draft was an exposure draft for a reason. We wanted feedback. We wanted ideas about what would work, what would not work, how it could be improved. And I understand that a bill will be presented to the Parliament very shortly, which outlines a strong anti-corruption commission, but follows due process to make sure that when there are allegations that they're properly investigated, they don't become a vehicle for show trials, as we see in some state jurisdictions where people almost have to prove their innocence because they're brought publicly before entities and have to defend their reputation. I want a system that follows exactly the same principles that apply to the rest of the public. If an allegation is made, it's investigated. If it then goes to a court for prosecution, then it's dealt with that way in a public sense, but there needs to be a case first, and it doesn't matter whether it's a politician or a public servant or any other member of the community.
And branch stacking should be at the top of the list to be investigated?
Well, that's a very loose term, and I'm not sure whether it's going to be covered as part of that, but obviously the use of public resources will be part of that conversation. I
mean, it's engulfed the Victorian Labor Party, and now it's Lib's turn. Have you witnessed it in your state?
Well, I need to be mindful of what I say. If you go back to reports last year, it was clear that perhaps some of it was directed in some directions, and I'll just leave my comments at that. But I haven't seen such conduct in my time around electorate office work, no. But if there's allegations, they should be appropriately put to the Department of Finance, where they should be investigated, because there should be no truck with using public resources for that purpose.
Just a final one on the economy. We had the Treasurer on the program a short time ago, Tim. The economy is in fairly good shape, all things considered. But there are a few storm clouds ahead, being wage growth among them, and the potential for out-of-cycle bank interest rates next year, and several of them, as a matter of fact. What are the issues or concerns that you've got within the next 12 months when it comes to our economy?
Well, there has been very healthy data, a reduction number of companies that have gone into insolvency over the past financial year. That should send us encouraging signs that despite the challenges of COVID-19 and lockdowns, businesses have been resilient, their balance sheets have been resilient. But, if you look internationally, there is the spectre of interest rate rises and what that can mean for many households who are already struggling to make ends meet. So I think cost of living is going to be a significant challenge. But this is a reminder about why you need those with strong credentials in managing the economy and steering it through these difficult times, not taking risks with the change of government.
Yeah, I mean, are you expecting people who have overindulged on a mortgage, and it's across several states now where we're seeing these huge this huge amount of housing affordability issues. I mean, could that be a problem down the track if you've got some 3, 4, 5 out of cycle interest rate rises? I mean, that could cause major problems when it comes to the housing market, even more than it exists now.
Well, I've consistently been speaking out about housing affordability, so much so that I wrote a book about it last year, and will continue to do so, because housing affordability goes to the sense of security Australians have in their working life and their retirement. And yes, interest rate rises are a serious risk for those who have high debt to income ratios. So it's a reminder that interest rates, while are low, they're presently artificially low, and that they're likely to return to normal levels. That's why there's strong prudential regulation in place to make sure that people can finance their debt, but also to make sure that they don't overextend themselves on their mortgages.
You got a guess on how many you could expect next year?
I wouldn't expect that many next year, but what I would say is that the reality of where they are now is artificially low, and we should expect them to return to a more stable, higher level.
All right, Tim, appreciate it. Talk to you soon. A new study